Here's the next one. So again, all the traffic on this road is from the weed farm. I applied for a job at the weed farm, and for a time when I thought maybe I'd get it, I was making a point of calling it Osage Creek Cultivation. But they never called me for an interview, so they are the weed farm. And I'm going to go spend the winter making snow on Mount Pluto near Lake Tahoe on the California side. Which is relevant to a comment that I'm going to read from Mighty Jabroni, who's responding to AI or climate change, which is the biggest threat. And this was about a poll that I participated in and then got to thinking about. It was on Twitter, and it was a poll of somebody asked, what's the greatest threat to humanity, AI or climate change? And most everybody, because it's Twitter, it's Blue Tribe, most everybody said climate change, which I had no problem with. But then in the comments, a few people made a point of saying, I voted climate change, and anybody who voted for AI is ill-informed, stupid, confused, whatever. Because, they had a very specific, I'm guessing, they had a very specific notion of what a threat from AI would look like. And, compared to climate change, which they are, which they need to emphasize as being concerned about in order to stay in good standing with their ideological tribe, they have to make a point of saying climate change is a huge issue for everybody. AI is a threat that really only rich people in rich countries who are geeky have any concern with. Which, while they may not realize it, is kind of true. You need to understand AI at a certain level in order to appreciate the spectrum of threats that it represents to humanity. But Mighty Jabroni writes, the problem with the AI pitch is probably that people have a very bloated idea of what AI as a threat does and might encompass. I'm thinking they have a constricted notion of what it encompasses. But anyway, many probably think of an AI waking up someday and working its way towards building Terminators, which of course is all kinds of silly. Yeah, it's silly because we don't have to wait for the AI to wake up for them to start building Terminators. Humans will build the Terminators and gradually, over time, cede control of them to AI. Right now, drones, which kill people, which they are tools of assassination, they are piloted by human beings, typically from trailers in Nevada, and they're executing people, assassinating people, murdering people, whatever verb you like with the right moral inflection on it, around the world. But there is a slight lag. So increasingly, drones have more and more autonomous onboard capability. They can return to a specified point if they lose contact with their operator. There's all kinds of things that they can do without explicit instructions from humans. The one thing they can't do is execute a kill order. A human has to be responsible for that right now. Going forward, I don't think that will be the case. But what I'm zooming in on here is probably not what Mighty Jabroni was thinking, but the idea that Terminators will wake up and start, or that AI will wake up and start building Terminators. No, the Terminator bodies will already be not only designed and built, but in the field operating when the AI wakes up. Mighty Jabroni continues, I personally also think that worries of robots stealing all our jobs are very exaggerated, simply because of how bloody over-engineered that would be, on both a technical and economical level. Needless to say that replacing humans at conveyor belts is one thing, which is why we have started doing that decades ago. Trying to replace a DHL/UPS parcel driver with a bloody robot is another thing entirely. It would be like magnitudes harder and consequently very expensive. Okay, I'll pause there and say, this is a point I've made again and again, and I'll continue to make it. There is no such thing as an unskilled human laborer. Compared to robots, humans come with an amazing suite of, capabilities in terms of navigating through space, identifying objects, determining in an instant what's relevant and what's not, what's dangerous and what can be, safely ignored. These are things that Engineers have been trying to build into robots and automated systems for decades, and it's very, very hard to do, and human workers bring all of this for free. So to call human workers unskilled because they don't have particular accreditation is just an insult to intelligence across the board. It is just dumb. That is a dumb concept of unskilled labor. If you say that without criticism, you are participating in stupidity. Doesn't mean that you are stupid. You're not. You're a human being. You come with this amazing suite of capabilities. Good on you. Actually, I'm going to pause a little bit longer on that point. I'm a cartoonist. Until fairly recently, the largest portion of my income came from illustrating comics. I all got paid for writing them, but writing them doesn't take nearly as long as illustrating them. But this year, 2022, has seen an amazing emergence of text-to-image generation by, call it whatever you want. The shorthand is to say AI. It is AI art. You can go to Twitter and put in hashtag AI art, and you'll come up with a huge amount of images that before this year, computers could not have produced, and now they can. And what you get from AI art, like for me as an illustrator, it's very frustrating because I can type in a phrase and get something that vaguely corresponds to the phrase, but it's nothing like what I had in mind. But it includes painterly techniques, it includes rendering, play of light and shadow and texture that would take me hours and hours and hours to do by hand if I could do it at all. And the machine does it in a few seconds. But it's not what I wanted. So the thing is, though, this is probably a tangent I shouldn't pursue here, but there's a big debate or a lot of hand-wringing going on. A lot of people make money by, illustrating. And if you are a client, if you need an illustration for an image, for an article or something, you can get it basically for free in a few seconds from an AI, or you can spend a few $100s and get it in a few days, from a human artist. What are you going to do? I mean, you got to be really dedicated to the specific image that you have in mind, not to settle for whatever the AI comes up with. So, it is a question of, will AI replace human artists? Not entirely. It will certainly change the role of the human artist. And it will probably allow a single human artist to produce a lot more art, which means, ultimately, either there'll have to be much more paid artwork, paid work going to artists in the world, or there will be fewer people making livings as an artist, even though you won't be able to say in any given artist's case, of somebody who used to do illustration and doesn't anymore, that AI put them out of a job. AI didn't put me out of a job. A funding shortfall at the organization that paid me to do the thing that I did, temporarily put me out of that work, or, cut off income from that work. To compensate, I'm going to Mount Pluto, near Lake Tahoe, and I'm going to do things that no machine and no robot can do. I'm going to ride a snowmobile over the mountain at night. I'm going to be straightening out hoses. I'm going to be knocking ice off of, snowmaking machinery. I'm going to be doing all kinds of things that are not routine. They require a human's ability to navigate through complicated environments and deal with unexpected circumstances. With physical competence, which is also coordinated with understanding of what needs to be done, something that machines just don't have. So I'm going from an activity which is rapidly being colonized by AI to one that is in no immediate danger of being taken over by either artificial intelligence, machine learning, algorithms, or robots. When it comes to your point on algorithms and social media, I wholeheartedly agree. But many people don't see that as an expression of AI. I personally don't even like the term AI because I think it is misleading. Ultimately, we talk about programming, which is determined routines and subroutines. It has nothing to do with intelligence in the conventional sense that we perceive it in. I could pause there, but I won't. I'm going to push on to the end. That is why people, when quizzed over the dangers of AI, probably, for the most part, will not even consider the detrimental effects of online marketing algorithms as part of the problem, but will lose their shit when a chatterbox based on 1970s programming gets a bald robot face applied to it and now has the ability to smile as it draws from its pool of prefabricated answers and responses. I'm not entirely sure what he has in mind with that last one. I think of, what is it, Sophia, this robot. It's like humanoid from the waist up. She's got this rubbery plastic face and can make different expressions. I don't think that she is just running like a chatbot, Eliza style from the 1970s with, you know, very canned answers. She seems to be a bit more sophisticated than that, though nowhere close to passing a Turing test, in my opinion. But yeah, AI, it is a catchphrase and it is a very limited utility, and it does allow for quite a bit of misunderstanding. Particularly when I'm talking about AI these days, really I should say machine learning. That's what I'm interested in. I'm interested in algorithms which are trained by ingesting enormous amounts of data, and then also the training is fine-tuned with a process called backpropagation. And it is typically a neural network architecture that is trained in this way. And a lot of times when you'll read popular science or just, you know, general audience news about neural nets, they'll throw in a line about how neural nets learn the same way human brains do, and that's simply not the case. It is 100% false. That is just not true. They don't learn the way humans do. Human brains are structured to learn certain things from very limited data inputs, whereas machines need huge, huge quantities of data because they're not structured to acquire specific types of learning, at least not in the way that human beings are. And secondly, there just is no equivalent of backpropagation for fine-tuning the weights between you know, certain layers, certain hidden layers in the neural net architecture. That there is no equivalent in biology. That's something I talked about in a recent episode of the Padverb podcast, and if past trends hold, more people are going to watch this off-the-cuff YouTube video than will tune in to this episode of this episode of the Padverb podcast. So, if AI and talking about it with some nuance and delicacy is of interest to you, or you would like to acquire a richer vocabulary for talking about it, do check out this episode of the Padverb podcast. And that'll be helping me out because I actually get paid to do that podcast. And if we actually get enough people, you know, listening to it that it's worth attracting advertisers, I'll make even more money, which would be helpful. Everybody needs to realize that KMO needs money. So the main thing that I want to focus on, though, is AI in the military. You know, one person on Twitter responding to the poll talking about how it's just so stupid for anybody not to choose climate change is, you know, they said that AI is only going to be a problem for a very few people in very rich countries. If you think about increasingly autonomous drones which execute, you know, kill orders on specific people, do those people who are being killed by drones, do they mostly live in rich countries or do they mostly live in poor countries? Algorithms are increasingly used in trading, you know, trading of currencies, trading of commodities, moving money around. Are people in rich countries or are people in poor countries more adversely affected by economic policy and patterns of trade? You know, these are all places where machine learning, big data, you know, algorithmic behavior executed faster than humans can in semi-expert ways, but in also ways that can go catastrophically wrong, like in fast crashes. Are people in the global south more adversely affected by that sort of thing? Or is it people in places like the United States or the United Kingdom or Japan or South Korea, Australia, Taiwan? Are those the places where people are more adversely affected by monetary policy and trade? If you think that, you know, it is North Americans who are more adversely affected by that sort of thing, I would be interested to hear your reasoning for thinking so. All right, that is all. We'll talk to you again soon. Stay well.